Hey, Buddha Zhen back. I'm enjoying being the daily Taoist. This is totally cool. I'm pumping out a whole bunch of these, where's my author copy of my book, The Tao of Taoism, using the Tao Te Ching to improve your life, written by Lao Tzu. And then I just took a bunch of translations of it and said, I don't think this guy's got it, I don't think this guy's got it, because I don't translate Chinese. So I had to like take the translations and what I knew of it and from being a part of the religion and the lifestyle for years and years and trying to see what made sense. Okay, what was he really saying that I would say harmonizes with the truth, the reality of using it in life. I've been using Taoism since the 80s, so if anybody could tell you what it is, it should be somebody who's been using it on a daily basis and teaching it to people, inserting in people and seeing how it affects them. Same with Buddhism. I called myself a Buddhist scientist for about 20 years because I considered myself kind of like all my students and everything were, to be facetious, I thought, lab rats, but they're my test subjects in a way. They're my children, and I'm constantly seeing the effects. I'm concerned. I don't just throw stuff at them. Hey, here's some old wisdom. Here's some more wisdom. Here's some more. No, I like look at it, flavor it, and shape it, and say, okay, can you understand that? How's it win? And then I come back. How's it working? How'd you like it? How'd it come out? So anyway, I've kind of been able to see the effects of the Taoism and the Buddhism over the years. Confucianism too. Actually, no, the Confucianism, I wish. I didn't start into that till about 2011. Sorry. So I couldn't tell you the effects of that, because if I did, I would have saved all kinds of marriages and businesses, because that's what that's for. Marriages, businesses, and politics. That's what Confucius is teaching. And, oh, that's what I heard. I thought somebody was at the front door. That's one of my lights falling down. And I hope it's going to stay there. Is that going to stay there, Bear? Because if that goes, that's going to really pop. It's a 150-watt bulb. Let me go move it real quick. Oh, anyway, Daily Taoist here. No, just hang on. Bear, why did that move? Wants to keep moving. All right. Okay, so I'm back. I don't know. Maybe I'll edit that out. As much as I'm an iPhoneographer and I'm getting all the software in my phone and everything, I don't know how to use it. I don't know what I'm doing yet. Well, I'm figuring it out. If you actually go to my other channel, Richard Del Connor, at YouTube, you can see music videos and things that I'm making. So I'm learning how to use a gimbal. I'm learning how to use my iPhone. I'm learning how to use LumaFusion. I'm shooting in Filmic Pro. And then I'm learning how to actually then, well, just getting it off my phone and then getting it onto a hard drive and then backing it up is a lot of work. I'm just figuring this all out. And so anyway. Here we go, the Daily Taoist. And we're on number 14. What I do, I took 2 minutes and 42 seconds of your time just getting started here. Sorry about that. Oh, by the way, never say you're sorry unless you're going to do it again. That's one of my slogans. Here I am, an anti-slogan person. But that's actually something that I want everybody to realize and look, and it's 100% true. Every time I tell people, they always come back at me and go, yeah, you're right about that. Never say you're sorry unless you're going to do it again. And if anybody ever says they're sorry, you can expect them to do it again. So don't say you're sorry. You can say you won't do it again, though. That's different. Here we go. Number 14. Just watch it. Watch yourself. When you say you're sorry for something, it'll be something you've done before, and you'll catch yourself. You're like, I said I'm sorry for that. I did it to that guy. He's stubbing his toe or, whatever it is. But yeah, watch. So don't say you're sorry, and you'll stop making mistakes. Okay. The Daily Taoist here, confusing you. The truth is cool. Number 14. This is written by Lao Tzu, originally, and then translated by other people, and then me synthesized into this book to make it more useful. But Lao Tzu's book, Tao Te Ching, is being presented to you in my Tao of Taoism by me, Buddha Zhen. I'm actually Richard Del Connor, if you want to look at my license. Here we go, number 14. Nature, and this is with a capital N, despite it being at the start of the paragraph. Nature cannot be measured or controlled. Yet, the operations of nature, with a capital N, can be understood. I'm using nature for the Tao, because there's different versions. You could call it the Tao. I'm going to call nature and Tao are the same thing, okay? Understanding the forces in motion creates an awareness of nature, the Tao. Doesn't matter. This awareness comes from an inner harmony of each person that mirrors the outer workings of nature. Read this again. I got to read it again. So only by living naturally can one understand or be aware of nature. Okay, this is where people get all messed up. This is one of the ones that really confuses people. They think they got to all of a sudden become a plant to understand what a plant is. You got to act like a monkey to be a monkey, to understand what a monkey is. No, he's not saying that, but let's just break it down real fast, because I really want to take the mumbo jumbo and the mystical godliness out of this, because this is not a godly thing. Remember, this is science. This is science, not God. Here we go. Nature cannot be measured or controlled. The earth, its rotation, the seasons, the up and down things, the clouds, the moving, the whatever, gravity cannot be measured or controlled. Okay, that's kind of what it's saying. Everything, the reality, okay, nature. Okay, I got that. It's beyond our control. We're popped in here. We exist in it. I was comparing it to a big bowl of soup that we're in the middle of, you know, moving around in this bowl of soup, you know, and we're here for a little while and then we're gone. The soup's still here, still going on, but we just come and go within the soup, nature. Okay, so, yet the operations of nature can be understood. So in other words, they can't really be measured or controlled because they change all the time. I mean, even measuring what the temperature is on a certain day is going to be different than the next day. I mean, you can measure it, but you can't predict that it's going to be the same. It's always in flux and change. So anyway, that's what we're trying to say. But you can understand it. You can understand it's colder in the winter. You may not know exactly what temperature it is. You can't measure it and predict on the next year in that same day it's going to be the same temperature and the same clouds. But you can understand in a broader sense. That's what he's trying to say. Yet the operations of nature, say the seasons and such, day versus night, can be understood. Okay, so there's our first two. Just simple, pragmatic science. Don't get it caught up in mystical mumbo-jumbo yet. I don't mind mystical mumbo-jumbo, but it's in the place for it, and it's not intended. Okay, ready? Understanding the forces in motion creates an awareness of nature. Forces in motion, the seasons, the winds, the wind that comes before the storm, the kind of clouds that come to bring rain, the kind of clouds that come that don't bring rain. Understanding all these forces in motion. If you understand them, you have an awareness of nature. See? You don't have, so you can start to understand and recognize things. That's an awareness of nature. Okay, so that's good. So we got the first three sentences. To be a scientist, just got to study things, learn things, go take a meteorology class. One of my regrets, I never got one. Here we go. This awareness comes from an inner harmony of each person that mirrors the outer workings of nature. Now this is where it gets more complicated. And this is where people, if you're really like our President Trump, he's very out of harmony with nature. I mean, anybody, I think, even his fans and supporters would agree with that. I mean, this guy's totally out of balance. He's miserable, he's unhappy, he looks unhappy, he gives off negative energy. He's just an ugly creature. But anyway, poor guy, he's just all messed up. His thinking's wrong. He's never going to be happy because he's working in a system that can never exist. His view of reality doesn't exist. So he's all day long just fighting to try to trick everybody to what reality is, and he's not in any reality at all. Poor guy. He's just living in this made-up world in his brain that can never exist. Because even if it does, it's a crime, and you're going to get in trouble. Even if it exists, he's got to get the money and run. He never wants to be anywhere where he's going to be stuck. That's his dilemma. He can never hold still. Anytime he holds still, he's going to get handcuffed. So he's got to keep moving. So that's out of harmony with nature. But sorry to use him as a radical example. He just came to mind first. But he doesn't understand the forces of nature. He has no concern about nature. He lives in this big city and just money and whatever. Yeah, here we go. But so, and what so why did I even point him out? Because his lack of awareness, he's the opposite of what the next sentence is. This awareness comes from an inner harmony. Now his inner harmony, of each person that mirrors the outer workings of nature. He does not mirror the outer workings with nature. That's why he makes people so unhappy. He is like, nobody's comfortable being, nobody'd want him for their babysitter. Nobody'd want him for their mother. He does not mirror nature, or if he does, he mirrors a kind of nature you shouldn't be around, like a crocodile or something that's going to eat you and drag you underwater. Doesn't care. So that's maybe he does kind of mirror a part of nature that, wow. Okay, maybe Maybe Lao Tzu's more right than I think. He actually is saying that even when you're wrong. Okay, this awareness, okay. But he's trying to talk in the positive, okay. He's trying to say that if you have an understanding, it comes from your awareness of your inner harmony, which is in balance, okay. So what happens when you have an inner harmony that's not in balance? That means you can never understand nature. You can never appreciate nature. You can never appreciate the other people in nature. It makes you completely separate from everyone because you have no balance that anyone should actually be attracted to, which is the other problem, which is the people that are attracted to that imbalance are the people with the same imbalance. So it kind of creates a, yeah. Okay. Now, so last sentence. So only by living naturally, in other words, naturally means in harmony with nature, not opposed to it, but comfortably living in harmony with it, where there's peace, accord, and contentment, can you understand or be aware of nature. That's why he can't be aware of it. He doesn't have inner harmony, doesn't have that balance. He can't sense it, he can't feel it. It's beyond him. So I'm using him as an example. Hopefully he doesn't represent you. My family is, well, I know all kinds of people like this, let's put it that way, that are not in balance with nature. And the ones that are in balance with nature, that's a step forward. But doesn't make you a complete person. That just means that, at least physically, you can be a successful animal. So that's all this is doing, is helping you to be a better animal. Okay, that was number 14. Boy, I spent how much time? 11 minutes just explaining it? I got carried away. That's what I'm doing. I started doing this so I could get a lot of this out of my system when I do the audiobook version of this. I'm hoping I won't talk so long. I mean, otherwise this book's going to be too long for anybody to read or listen to. Here we go. But that's why I like this as the Daily Taoist, though. I was thinking about trying to keep it at 5-6 minutes. I'm already at 11:33. Anyway, let me just blast down. Let's see how far we get. Maybe it's going to be a 20-minute thing today. You ready? Are you on board? Because I'm going to need a few minutes to unpack all this. There's a bunch of questions here. Explain your... in fact, I will go fast because these are so vague and I'm not going to elaborate on it. Well, if I do, it'd take a long time. So let's just see how fast I can go. It's 12 minutes now. Let's see how fast I can go. Explain your understanding of nature. Explain your understanding of nature. Right now. Now mine changed. I was a Native American for some years, following those traditions. I was a pipe carrier, doing smudges. Anyway, okay. So how do the forces of nature influence your life? Yeah, they used to influence mine a lot. Okay, and again, I'm in a different situation now. You, how do the forces of nature influence your life? Okay. Explain your inner harmony. Remember that inner harmony we were talking about? Up here it says the awareness comes from an inner harmony of each person that mirrors the outer workings of nature. So let's look at your inner harmony and see how that's somehow some mirror of nature. So in other words, if you live in a very cold igloo, then you're going to mirror your harmony of nature is going to be a little different than somebody who maybe lives next to it on the beach. So you have a different inner harmony, maybe. I don't know. That'd be interesting to find out. I'd like to talk to both you guys, the guy in the igloo and the guy on the beach, and kind of compare your perspectives of reality. Here we go. Oh, how does your inner harmony mirror the forces of nature? See, once again, you're in the igloo versus the beach. How are you mirroring nature? Once again, how does your inner harmony mirror the forces of nature? Explain how your life is natural. Okay. So somebody in Arizona might have a different natural life than somebody in Washington State. So, explain how your life is natural. Explain why your life is natural. You know, and obviously, like some people we know in presidential positions, you can be very unnatural. So explain why you decided to make your life natural, or how it came to be natural. Maybe somebody just trained you that way. Okay, explain how your life is mechanical or unnatural. Ooh, mechanical and unnatural. So you're a machine, you're doing something that's maybe contrary to nature, but it's your job. Maybe you're chopping down trees. That would be kind of unnatural. Okay, explain how your life is, there you go. What do you do out of obligation or necessity rather than by desire? That's probably 50% of the people on the planet there just have a job. You know, they're just happy to get the paycheck, even if they don't have any interest in that business or product line. So what do you do out of obligation or necessity rather than by desire? Okay, own up to it. Can't be honest with yourself? Hey, you'll never be smart. Here we go. What do you do to satisfy others that does not satisfy you? Ooh, that's an interesting question. I'm quite the giver, but anyway, one more time. What do you do to satisfy others that does not satisfy you? What expectations of others are you currently satisfying? Hey, so each of us can have a very different answer for that one, obviously. What expectations of others are you currently satisfying? How much time do you spend each day doing nothing? Once again, how much time do you spend each day doing nothing? If you had all the money you could need or spend, what would you do with your time? If you had all the money you could need or spend, what would you do with your time? Why aren't you doing these things now anyway? Boy, when I was homeless, that was a question I was asking all the time. Sorry to interject. You see, I said, I'm sorry. I'm going to do it again. Why aren't you doing these things now anyway? Do you believe that to not work or to not have a job is wrong? Do you believe that to not work or not have a job is wrong? Do you believe that you should have children and a family? Do you believe that you should have children and a family? How many kids do you intend to have and why? How many kids do you intend to have and why? When you don't have to go to work, there's actually a typo here. Sheesh, second one I found. What time do you wake up and go to bed? When you don't have time to go to work, what time do you wake up and go to bed? That's an interesting question. How is this different than when you are working? Okay, so when you don't have a job, I guess that was so many things going in my head. When you don't have to go to work, when you don't have a job. Okay, so when you don't have a job, what time do you wake up and go to bed? Okay, so it changes your schedule. You don't have to get up at any time. How is this different than when you're working? So does it change when you're working in your normal occupation? Okay, so there's number 14. And it was 17 minutes. Daily Taoist out of here.